Welcome back, guys. You've made it to episode 4 of the Interactive Guide to Progressive Metal, and what a journey it has been so far. For those who are new, make sure to go check out the first video. That's where I explain how all this works. And as always, if you're too impatient to watch all the videos, go to indevstudios.com, look up the flowchart, and just see it all for yourself. But if that seems like too much of a hassle for you, why not just watch the whole video and listen to hours of progressive metal? So we've gone from the more classic prog rock sounds of Opeth, new Opeth, to the pop punk Coheed and Cambria, and then to the djenty rhythms of Periphery, and now today we've landed on Mastodon. So while this category is heavy, just like the Periphery one, it's heavy in a much different way. You still get some harsh vocals, but most of the time they're deeper and not influenced at all by metalcore, but the instrumentation is quite different. There's less polish, less snappy, clean production. It's more droning, more sluggish, more thunderous, and sometimes fuzzy. There's a lot of influence from stoner rock, some touches of southern rock, doom metal. There are a lot of layers to this cake, so let's get started. Today I'm drinking Steel Reserve, probably the last one in existence. Yeah, tastes like nothing. Okay. First, I should note that a lot of this list was suggested to me by my longtime friend Daniel, who I expect will never watch this video, but I still want to give him a shout out because he's a big stoner and doom metal fan, so his knowledge was much appreciated. Here is Mastodon. So, there are 5 subcategories to Mastodon that are all very different. I'd say that the most progressive of these subcategories has some long, epic songs, and is headed by the German band called The Ocean. The Ocean has 3 children, one of which I discovered recently, called Pull Down the Sun, whose album Of Valleys and Mountains made an aggressive entrance to the community in 2020.
We believe in nothingness, chaos moves in waves.
And here I thought would be a good place to put the famous Gojira, who is so unique that I couldn't find a better place to put them, honestly. This is one of the biggest acts on this list and has very little progressive influence, in my opinion, especially recently, but they have never made a bad album, also in my opinion, and continue to create some incredible music.
See the mountains rising, a distant depression, embrace of the destroyed, the gift of care, like the starving orphans, the final core is gone.
Another good pick under The Ocean is a now inactive band from Sweden called Burst.
When the wind broke, with the dust back, no fight was over.
The trio underneath here are very heavy, the first being Apiary. The second being Gaza. This band will put some hair on your chest with their dizzying drum work. Sunburns, third band is actually just 2 people. The drummer does the singing, and the guitarist shows that you can definitely play metal on a Telecaster. They're called Tuskar. And then we have a more progressive side influenced by the ocean and a little bit of barrenness, who we'll get to in a few minutes. A band I spelled wrong called Kylesa. Kylesa has one child named Atlases, who is very dark with strong post-metal influence. And this will help us transition into the second child of Mastodon. This subcategory has a lot more grit, a lot more doom, and a lot more post-metal influence, Intronaut. The next band here travels more into dissonant vocals, but still keeps the post-metal tones and plays with stoner rock tendencies, a band called Elder. This is a good transition to another heavy-hitting band on here, one of my personal favorites, Baroness. Intronaut released the album Unfold the God Man in 2020, and it is a powerful journey, huge reverberating drums, and these bleak, chilling vocals. The third band here is called Vokonis, has a little more organ and prog rock influences, but the vocals fit this category perfectly. I love this mixture. Next band here under Intronaut is Pallbearer, pretty famous among Doom listeners. Sometimes you can hear strong influences of Black Sabbath, and guitar is so heavy and dirty that you can't tell what's going on most of the time. It's amazing. A lesser-known child has a lot more space and atmospheric moments, but still keeps that same heaviness, forming The Void. In the next section of Doom, we slow down to a sluggish haze that makes you feel as though you're crawling through the hot desert tar pond.
Away, so I can die. Please, please, please don't hurt me.
The first child of Tar Pond keeps that sludginess, but adds a little black metal chill to the top. One of the heaviest bands on here, in my opinion, Dope Throat. And just so we remember what category we're in and where we came from, let's get a little post-metal thrown in, and suddenly you get a band called Conjurer. If you took the riffage of the other bands and threw in some wailing vocals and a little more atmosphere, you'd get a band called Moth Gatherer. So as you can tell, this category is kind of all over the place, but I'm trying to squeeze in a lot of different variants and link it all together with prog metal and touch on some different subgenres here. So forgive me if I take you like all over the musical map. Somehow we started with Mastodon and we're returning to form here with a band called Torch, who is just a big wall of sound that hits you all at once. A little darker and more mystifying is a band called Empress. Black Royal is a band that has the compositions and riffage of some of the previous bands, but includes some occasional moments of symphonic metal with violins and chanting harmonies. The Sword brings a more groovy feeling to this side of the category. I get a very old school feeling from them, like that old school metal sound, but a lot of it still feels very brand new. Now next is when things get a little more stoner, but this is the original stoner rock kind of sound. I'm starting off with the most accessible band called Red Fang. Now, if you like the vocals from Red Fang, but want something a little more mysterious, go for Stonebringer. Another child of Red Fang matches similarly in grooves and catchiness, a band called Devil Electric. This next band is another lesser known pick, but so versatile that I could have put them literally anywhere on the list. Something a little heavier called Cthulhu Minati. Now back to the grungy stuff with a Swedish stoner rock band called Juana Stone. Now for one of the most influential bands this side of the category, Monster Magnet has had its hand in the creation of most of the bands on this list, and if you're into any kind of psychedelic or stoner music, then you've probably heard them before.
Your boy has got it. I got a 10-foot floor.
Two children underneath Monster Magnet are a very popular band called Clutch and the extremely dirty sounding The Heavy Eyes.
Over on the shoulder. Yeah, and I was there for some time. Yes, you're beaten. Fireballs! Energy weapons! From this stage on. It's gonna be a while, but I'll be back someday. One hand on the buffalo. Buffalo.
Now last one under Red Fang is a little darker and more metal than the rest, but it still contains the grunginess that you're here for, a band called Exosphere. Orange Goblin starts the next subcategory and keeps that classic sound of original heavy metal acts with the galloping guitar riffs and gruff sounding vocals.
Because the man is the man is the man. Because the man with the gun in his hand.
There are three children under here. The first one, if you can believe it, was founded in 2007, but perfectly captures the old school bluesy sound, Graveyard.
Going down the way, cut the restless stone, leading to the island where I wanna go. Nothing really can satisfy for in your ears. Smell of wind that's always near. It takes away your fear. Where is the future? There is no past.
Radio Moscow takes the Cream and Jimi Hendrix style compositions and has fused them with modern stoner and doom sensibilities.
Always changing. The piece of the mind. The city breaks it. Let me go. You gotta let me go. See what.
This next band is kind of cheating because they formed in the 60s, so it's not really necessarily modern, but they've been somewhat active into the 2000s, so I'm using them anyways. One of the OGs of this whole category, Blue Cheer.
Well, if you wanna use a car to go right next Sunday. the summertime.
Speaking of big names that have influenced the whole genre, why not talk about Fu Manchu while we're at it?
6 hours before, with an evil grin, ready to lie and shake his plan, racing on.
While we're getting hazy, it's probably time that you listen to some Kyuss, because if you're in the mood for a bassy, more underground sound that makes you feel like you're listening to your favorite garage band, these are the guys to go to. And you can't mention these two without mentioning the guy who actually came from both of them. Brant Bjork has his own solo music and just as heavy and deliciously fuzzy as the rest of them. Now don't worry, we're not done yet with stoner music or doom music. In fact, the next section has both. If you're not familiar with the name Windhand, then you probably haven't been paying attention, and that's good because I have a treat for you today. Just close your eyes and let the fuzz wash over Got three very big names under here, and they're all extremely different. Like I said, we're covering a lot of ground today, so just stick around and see what tickles your tympanic midbrain. Electric Wizard feels kind of like a wave of sound that's washing over your head, and there's someone screaming in your ear, and you're struggling to breathe. All in all, it's a great time. Now, I would be ridiculous to not mention Sleep. Dope Smoker is a legendary song. Yes, it's over an hour long. Yes, you're required to listen to it in one sitting. These are the rules. Do not argue with Matt Pike. A band that pairs well with Sleep is another Swedish band called Truck Fighters. Now this next band fits the atmospheric feeling you get from Sleep and puts it in a reverberating, almost ghost-like harmonies, not only the band Ghost, but actually what I would expect ghosts to sound like. This is Elephant Tree.
We'll save them now, like the bones on holy ground. Don't you know he's watching you?
Slipped in a little baby under Elephant Tree called 16, who has some really amazing album artwork and makes great music too.
I see the earth and moons under your round neck, but then you live again.
And the last band under Sleep is a more washed out, reverberated band that will help us transition into the next subcategory, a band called Youngblood Supercult. And now we're getting into the more darker, more depressing territory. I told you we were going to go all over the place in today's episode, and I was not lying. This is the bleak and haunting Bell Witch. So I've separated Bell Witch into categories that take the different elements of their work and ultimately will also connect us to the previous bands. So the first is Elbrus, who bends the slow, haunting sluggishness with the stoner rock grooves. The next band, Dawnwalker, actually has some more progressive elements, but features both clean and black metal-esque vocals.
From the void,
And now going back to the heaviness with deep throaty vocals and distorted chuggy riffs, a band called Sauron. A lot of these bands would be classified as post-metal. I even saw the term doomgaze pop up next to the description of this band. Pipe Dreamer is one that certainly demands more recognition. Dialogia is another Bandcamp band I found a long time ago that I would say treads into death metal territory. As I said before, you'll see more of that in the last episode from Cynic, so stay tuned for that. The next band is crushing, similar vocals to all the above, but similar to Bell Witch the most, just absolutely devastating. They're called Primitive Man. Speaking of things that don't make any sense, I feel like I must have been drunk when I did this category because none of these things are related at all, but I had to fit them together somehow, so please forgive me for how weirdly everything is grouped. This next band is a classic, one of the most influential bands on here. You've probably heard of them before, Pentagram. They don't even need an introduction, honestly, so just go listen. We're still in doom metal territory, and since we're talking about Pentagram, we have to mention another project the singer worked with called Bedemon, which has distorted lo-fi recordings.
Just be free and I my soul I sell. I'm a prisoner myself, my fear, my need. Just stick me with the dead. I close my eyes, let everything die. I walk through heaven and I touch a sky.
And now for our last subcategory of Mastodon. Kylesa is a well-known sludgy group from Georgia that includes some more psychedelic elements and even a few touches of post-hardcore sound. If you remember Sleep and Matt Pike and all that stuff, then you might enjoy another group he's part of called High on Fire, who is less hazy and has more of that powerful Mastodon riffage of heavy metal origins. High on Fire has 3 children, the first being Yashira, which has that hardcore chaos, but with rougher heavy metal vocal tinges of the previous band. The next band is called Corrosia and has the fuzzy, hazy guitar sound, but combined with faster, heavy metal riffs, and honestly, it sounds better than I could have imagined. Next band is like Mastodon with the singer of Tears for Fears and Gojira riffs, maybe some 12-Foot Ninja. I don't know, it's weird. Just go listen and see what you think. 4-Stroke Baron. Now, similarly to 4-Stroke Baron, but with a few dashes of Mastodon in there, Druids.
Speeding through dimensions, it's racing all the time. I beat it.
Next to Druids is a little bit darker, which will lead us into the last section, the House of Capricorn. So we are now on the home stretch. This is where, if you liked older Mastodon, like Leviathan and Remission era, you'll feel a lot more at home. Old Man Gloom is where I'll start. Scott Kelly's iconic voice cemented what started as a punk band and slowly turned into a more sludge slash post-metal sort of outfit. Neurosis has the perfect amount of manly, rough around the edges metal with some surprisingly beautiful moments thrown in. A newer band called Sevon, Sevon, I think that's how you pronounce it. I just realized I never heard people like say bands out loud because I don't talk to people about music. I just kind of sit on my computer and look them up. So, yeah, whatever. Sevon from Massachusetts takes inspiration from the post-metal instrumentals and hardcore vocals. LLNN is inspired by sci-fi and dystopian themes, and you can certainly feel that through their bombastic heaviness. I actually rediscovered them while making this list and am listening through their whole discography. It's great stuff. Last one in this whole chart is Wheelfall. They have the brutal hardcore vocals and what I feel touches more into the punk style and occasionally nu metal instrumentals. Very intense combination. And that is the end of the Mastodon category. Sorry that was kind of a mess. I think I tried to put too much on my plate. Maybe I tried to put too much into this one category. If you think about it, it's really hard to put progressive metal and contain it into categories because it's not really something that's supposed to be categorized in the first place because it's progressive, you know, it's supposed to be ever changing, but there are things that have similar sounds, which is why I tried to do this. So let me know in the comments what you think. Remember, I've got 2 more episodes to go. Thank you so much for the support. I've literally gained I think I looked at my statistics, I've gained 80 subscribers in 30 days, which is insane. That's almost 3 people subscribing every day. That's crazy. So yeah, just keep listening and I'll see you guys next time.